So pernah tak kau chillin kan, and then you see all of these nice expensive keyboard, great sounding from like Homogeneo and TH types, and then reality crashes down and you're back to your scratchy MX Blues. What if for $10 you can improve your keyboard sound and become like this? But first, let's see what other items we need. First, we need to remove the switches. Take the wire keycap puller and slide it under the switches. Apply pressure on the keyboard and pull it out. Now repeat the process for all of the switches and make sure that you arrange it in the order that it's meant to be on the keyboard. Now the end product should look something like this. Now the next step is removing the switch. Take the switch puller and apply it to the bottom and the top of the switch. Make sure that both of the ends are latched on and the switch puller can stand by itself. By now, apply pressure to the keyboard and pull the switch upwards. Do not bend it upwards or downwards, left or right, as it can cause damage to the pins. Although I'm using an optical switch, so that it doesn't really matter. Now, remove all of the switch. Now we need to remove the plate for the PCB. To do this, you can find usually silver screws on top of the plate. Remove them all, put it in a secure location, and if you're doing it right, you should be easily able to separate the plate from the PCB. Now the next step is to separate the PCB from the plate. To do this, you need to find black screws which is mounted on top of the PCB and unscrew it. Again, doing it right, you should be able to separate both of the plate and the PCB. Now my unit has a battery because this SK64 keyboard actually has a Bluetooth feature, but yours might not. Now just to make it clear, this is the two different screws. So the silver one is actually the one holding the plate and the PCB together, while the black one, as you can see inside the hole, is the one holding the PCB to the case. So the process is removing the silver screw first, separating the plate, and then removing the black screws and thus separating the PCB from the case. Now the next step actually involves opening the switch, but before opening you must understand there are two types of switch. The one on the left is the typical cherry type of switch, while the one on the right is the kale type of switch. So for example, you need to correspond the amount of legs with the switch opener. For example, the cherry style switch has 4 legs, so you need to find the switch opener with the 4 prongs. Place the switch in the middle and then you press centrally in location and with a firm pressure, and then you can hear a click, and then you can just separate the switch. Once separated, you can see that the switch is divided into 4 parts: the stem, bottom housing, top housing and the spring. Now the next part is special for the optical blue switches. You can actually remove the click by just removing the click jacket. You do this by inserting between the stem and the click jacket. You insert the tweezer and you press the stem and pop the click jacket out. So this way you can convert the clicky blue switch to just a normal linear switch. Now you need to do this for all of the switches like usual, and make sure you separate. So you place the bottom housing inside the lubing station, or like myself, I use the echo container, and then separate the spring, the stem and the top housing, as we will be lubing them separately. Now conventional lubing requires you to loop the sides of the stem and the shaft of the stem. In fact, TH Types is a very good guide regarding how to loop switches, which I will link down below, but we are going to use a simpler method. Instead today, we are going to use a more YOLO method of lubing stem switches, and that is back lubing. So back lubing requires you to put 1 or 2 dabs of lubricant and spread it across evenly inside a Ziploc bag. So I'm just using a small Ziploc bag. So you massage the loop, make sure that all the corners is covered with lubricant, and then you put some of the stems in. After that, just shake the hell out of the bag. So I would recommend shaking for around 30 seconds to 1 minute. Now do it right, and all of the stems should be evenly coated with lubricant, so that should not be a problem. And the only cons is that you have to wipe off some of the excess grease on top of the stem. Okay, so now that stems are all lubed up, you can do the same method for the springs. Just put some lubricant inside the ziploc bag, put the spring inside, and shake it up for 30 seconds to 1 minute. After that, it's basically done. Now that the other parts are lubed, we are going to proceed with lubing the bottom housing. Now we are only going to lube 2 parts of the bottom housing, which both of the rails, which is on the right and on the left side. So just use a thin layer of lubricant and make sure there's no white residue, because the telltale sign of overlubing, if you have white residue on the rails, meaning the switches are overlooped. Okay, now that all of the lubing process is over, all we need to do is just reassemble the switches. So first, put the springs into the bottom housing, place the stem on top, and then put the top housing and seal the switch over. But do keep in mind one thing, you need to make sure that the LED part goes towards the LED side. So don't get that mixed up, or the switch might be jammed. Now, because we did the bagging method for the switch stem, it is important for you to wipe off any excess lube of the stem. So take a rag and wipe it off. Okay, now that all of that is over, do it the same for all of your switches. Now that the switches is done, we're going to do another mod that, in my opinion, is just as important as the switch lubing, and that is tuning the stabilizer. So the 3 things that I'm going to do today is I'm going to loop the stabilizer wire, I'm going to do the holy mod, and I'm going to clip the stabilizer. So if you're looking for a very good stabilizer tuning guide, you can see this video by Hamaginio. It's a very good video. Everyone who tries to modify their keyboard should really watch this stabilizer tuning video. Now, another thing that shocked me when I was disassembling is that I noticed that the stabilizer are actually looped from factory, but it still rattles quite badly. So it shows that lubing stabilizers only is just not enough. Now, the first mod I did is actually clipping the stabilizers. As you can see, this is different. The one on the left is the clip stabilizer, and the one on the right is the stock stabilizer. Next, I cut a small piece of the band-aid. This is for me to slide into the stabilizer and do the holy mod. The holy mod is actually, basically the mod is sticking the band-aid into the surface of the stabilizer stem that is in contact with the stabilizer wire. So the principle is that because there's a band-aid on top, instead of plastic hitting the metal, the band-aid will cushion some of the impact and reduce the rattle. So another thing that you can do with the band-aid is you can put some of the band-aid onto the top of the PCB, which is in contact with the stabilizer. Again, this prevents the stabilizer plastic or metal to hit the PCB and causes the rattling noise. Now cut a bit of the foam and place it into the case. This will help to dampen some of the hollowness of the sound. Now we can reassemble back the keyboard. Place both the PCB and the plate inside the case. Screw everything tightly. Insert back all of the switches and place back all of the keycaps. Press all of the keys and make sure all of the keys register and there's no jamming of the keys. That is very important.